Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex. Today, we are here with a very special guest. I don't want to butcher your name, but we're going to go for it. I'm going to say it. Mr. Remso.
Alex, you got it on the first try. You know how
Okay,
many
all
people
right.
it usually takes them at least 3-4 tries, and you got it on the first one. Bravo.
Well, hey, I just want to do my best to make sure I don't butcher anybody's name. I know how that feels. So, but
How many people
anyway,
screw up Alex?
well, normally it says Alexander, so some people just don't want to say that right, and I don't understand because it's kind of like a common name. But but I don't know. I digress.
I was about to ask, where did the Starbucks barista at the drive-thru hurt you? But okay.
Yeah. Well, surprisingly, I've never really had Starbucks. But
you're not missing out.
Yeah.
If you like disappointment in a cup, Starbucks is usually the way to go.
No, I'm big on. I need positivity in the cup. I don't need any disappointment.
There you go.
So welcome onto the show. We're gonna just jump straight into it. So can you give everybody like a quick background about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Remso W. Martinez. I always got to throw the W in there because my father's name is Remso. I was born in Arizona, way yonder back, but I grew up in a military family. So moved around the country, moved around the world, spent some time as a kid in Australia. And that was that was a great childhood. A lot of military brats often will go ahead and complain about having to move along, every year, having to move around to different places. But, I got to the point where I began to thoroughly enjoy it. Lived in Virginia for about a decade, graduated from high school and went straight into the Army. I did a 2-year Army ROTC program, an early commissioning program through Marion Military Institute in Alabama. So moved way down south for a couple of years right outside of Selma and served in the Alabama National Guard. After that, went over to Liberty University where I got a degree in political science, which is basically I can tell you how governments tend to like make our lives miserable and some crazy stories, and that's about it. But served out the rest of my time in the Virginia National Guard until 2021. During that time, I thought I wanted to go ahead and be in politics. I thought I wanted to be like a staffer or, a policy analyst or something. And that didn't really work out. So the trifecta is if you don't succeed in politics, go into media. And if you don't succeed in media, go into like organized crime or something, guns, drugs, and people. But, I went into the media and I found that was a way better environment for me. Started getting into digital marketing because I was getting these communication skills. I was already managing social media for a lot of small businesses and clients. So it was an easy transition for me. I went into the Washington Times and was in the newsroom, basically expanding all of our social media, getting the paper in front of a whole new generation of people. Then from there, I went into the tech startup space, wrote a couple of books. Well, a little bit before that and a little bit after that, spent some time as a marketing manager in the nonprofit sphere. And then the last couple of years, primarily worked in large publishing, finance, sports, consumer reviews, news websites, tabloids, that type of thing. But, around last year, the industry started changing. I've always been somebody who's been a little bit tepid when it comes to trusting big tech, Google, Facebook, X at the time when it was back at Twitter. So I was always saying, listen, like we got to start running from these situations where people can immediately go ahead and shut off our reach to our audience and our customers. And we got to start building our own platforms. We got to start thinking outside the box. And that was kind of where the idea of my agency, Marketer on the Run, came from. Because, after the lockdowns of 2020, lots of business owners, lots of friends of mine, they just couldn't make it. 1 in 4 small businesses that closed their doors for more than 2 weeks did not open back up. And I'm a big free market guy. I want to see competition. I want to see variety. I want to have options. So if I could use my skills and my talents and my network to go ahead and help entrepreneurs across the country and nonprofit leaders and tech startup leaders get a chance in the world where they can compete, I've wanted to do that. So, I've been many things in between that, other than being a soldier and a marketer. I was a podcaster. I was an author, as I mentioned. I was a documentary series producer too. I've lived 1,000 lives all before 30. And, it's never a normal day. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, hey, what is normal nowadays?
True.
So you mentioned that you were out here close to Selma. I'm actually in Alabama. I'm actually probably about
War Eagle or Roll Tide?
Roll Tide all day.
Okay. Let's see how this is going now. I appreciate you inviting me on. It was a nice 5 minutes.
He in it already.
Man, let me go on a quick tangent. So at Marion Military Institute, you go through like every military school makes you go through kind of like a phase where like everything sucks. It's a matriculation period where they called it ITC, intensive training cycle. And at the end of that 2-week period, because it's a 2-year school, so they can't go a full year like at West Point, the Citadel or something. At the end of that 2-week period, they give you a 3-day weekend. So, this was one of the first times for the entire summer because I graduated from high school. I remember I went to go see Fast and Furious 6 with my dad. And then the next day I was on a bus to basic. And then as soon as I graduated from that, like a week later, I was back in Alabama to get ready to go to school. But, at the end of that 2 weeks, me and a bunch of my buddies in my company, we all we got like packed into somebody's pickup with like a group of Mexicans or sardines, and we all drove down to Tuscaloosa. And immediately we were like, we want to go to a frat party. Well, here's the thing. Most of the Alabama frats have a list to get in. And you know who wasn't on that list? Us. So I thought the next best thing was, instead of being deterred and, not going there, I thought, let's go ahead and hop the fence behind the building. So this was the first time I was chased by the cops. So I'm about to hop the fence, and I go, and I'm waiting for a few of my buddies to hop. And immediately on the other side, because we tried going through the front door, and we were like, I'm John's friend. And they're like, we don't know John. And I'm like, shoot, I don't know what to do. So I hop the fence, and there are cops there. And I don't know what else has been happening. I guess they had some other folks try and crash their party. So I hop the fence, turn around, look at the cops, hop the fence again as they're like, hey, we need to talk to you. And I had like the fastest sprint of my life. I felt like Forrest Gump, no Alabama pun intended. I'm just running and running and running. And thank God they were Tuscaloosa PD, because anyone that knows the Tuscaloosa PD knows that they don't like cardio. So, after that, I've always had kind of a grudge against, Crimson Tide football. It was a football player that narked on us. Yeah. And, that was the only time I ever tried going to a frat party the entire time.
So you were literally a marketer on the run.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
See, destiny was unfolding.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm actually about 45 minutes east of Selma in a place called Clanton.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's actually where I live. That's actually where I'm shooting it now. So I just figured, I was like, when you said Selma, I was like, I wonder if you know where Clanton's at. So but yeah, so interesting story. That was interesting.
Man, 2 years in Alabama was like a big, that was a big maturing phase for me, because I'd never lived that far down in the South. I was also by myself. I was at a school with a bunch of people that I didn't know. I was also trying to learn how to be a soldier. I was trying to learn how to be a college student. And meanwhile, it was just a learning curve. I mean, it goes for anything. I mean, when you are in a place where you don't know where anything is, where you don't know where anyone lives, you don't know what's popular, what's fun to do, you don't know where not to go sometimes, it forces you to grow up really fast. And it's been about 11 years now since I was in. No, it's been more like 10 years. Yeah, it's been about 10 years since I was in Alabama, and I haven't been back since. But when I look at a lot of the points in my life where I had to accelerate my maturity and my get shit done attitude really fast, a lot of the big moments were definitely when I was in Alabama. So Alabama's always got a special place in my heart.
Well, I'm surprised to hear you say that. A lot of people don't say that about them.
Well, I got chased by the cops. The first time I saw a shooting was in Selma. The first time I saw a stabbing was in Selma. The first time I got pulled over was in Selma. I had nothing to do with all those things. I was just like, I went to what was it? It's the chicken sandwich place. It's not Culver's. It's not Milo's. No, yeah, the burger place, Milo's. Huh?
Oh, Milo's?
Yeah, I was no, there's no Milo's in Selma. What's the chicken sandwich place?
Popeyes?
Zaxby's. I was at so I was at Zaxby's and I saw a shooting in the driveway. And then I went to Zaxby's like 4 months later and was like, I can finally forget about that shooting. And I saw a stabbing in the driveway.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, like, long story short, if you're going to the Zaxby's in Selma, go through the drive-through. Your safety level immediately rises. Or stay whichever comes first.
That's interesting. But I mean, when you said
Selma, and everything either, so you had to like physically go there. And the drive from Marion to the Zaxby's in Selma, it's kind of like driving through that movie, like The Hills Have Eyes. Like it's really long and really creepy out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, Marion is a little bit of a drive. It's a lot of back roads too.
Have you been to Marion?
I've been by it. I haven't been directly in it, but I've been.
You should just go there and don't get out of your vehicle, because the people of Marion live in like their own little ecosystem, and there were some really lovely people there. I went to Marion United Methodist Church. All 2 years I was there, and the congregation there was really lovely. But there was there was one time I was walking, and they didn't really want us walking in town, because if you were a cadet at MMI, you had to wear one of your uniforms in town. And to the town's credit, not all the cadets always behaved. So you had cadets that would go into town and would try and act stupid, be stupid. And because of that, they kind of developed a reputation over the years. So I was walking back from Marion United Methodist over back to the MMI campus. It's about a 2-mile walk, maybe even less than that. So not far. And I just have this local cop. He just rolls up on me like I'm in a movie or something. And he's just like, "You should get in." And I'm like, "Am I good, officer?" He's like, "Yeah, you should get in." So he gives me a ride. It's not even a 2-minute ride. And he drops me off at the gate of the school. And here I am thinking, oh, he was just being really nice to me. And as I'm about to say thank you, he's like, "Don't let me see you walking in town again." And I was like, okay, now I feel totally safe.
Yeah. Like, hey, was something supposed? Well, I mean, yeah, you don't know how to take that. That's
no. I was 18 too. I'm like, the cops are my friend, and I'm like, this is also after they chased me. To which at that point, I'm still like, I deserve to be chased at that point. But yeah, no, it was a small town. Still is a small town. This is before they had that like giant burn pile established that was giving everyone cancer in town. They tried to go ahead and film a documentary about that until the mayor basically like sued them and was like, "You can't tell everyone that they're getting cancer because we got a taxpayer funded tar pit to become like the like freaking dumping ground for the Southeast." But it was it's a sad town too. I mean, lots of history. I mean, Coretta Scott King was born around the corner from there. You have some beautiful plantation homes that also carry their own history. You had a lot of civil rights stories, but I mean, it's a town where like all the commerce left because they built a Walmart about 45 minutes towards Tuscaloosa. And originally they were going to put that Walmart in town, and all the locals were like, "No, Walmart is going to put all of our small businesses out of business if you put it here. That would be horrible." So Walmart said, "Okay, we'll move 30 minutes that way." So the town that they ended up moving the Walmart to ended up doing really well. And what ended up happening in Marion, like there's like a used bookstore, one cafe, the girls' college, and a flower shop. Other than that, there is like nothing in town. Actually, no, I take that back. There's like a Jack in the Box or something, or Hardee's, whatever, Carl's Jr., I forgot what it was called. And every Friday, my friends and I and a bunch of other cadets would try and go there, and they would run out of food in an hour. And we were like, "How do you run out of food at a fast food place?" And they're like, "This is Marion. We're lucky if we get a shipment of like frozen patties like twice a week." So Yeah. You ever want to know what it's like to see a town on decline? Just go to Marion and you're going to feel way better about yourself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this: did anything that you experienced in Marion help shape you as far as you becoming a marketer?
It was so yeah, what it did, and this is really what kind of pushed me to be an entrepreneur. I think my time in the Army and my time, especially in the MMI Corps of Cadets, really helped show me what I liked and showed me what I didn't want to tolerate. One thing it taught me was I always thought that I was just a very like straight laced, yes sir, no sir, type of kid. But what it immediately taught me was that I'm good with authority if I respect authority. If you don't respect authority, when you don't respect the person, you're going to have an issue with authority. So what that quickly forced me to ask was whether or not the military was going to be something I wanted to pursue long term. It's one of the reasons I didn't go active duty. I stayed a guardsman.
Mm.
So what that showed me real fast was that I had my own opinions. I had my own thoughts. It wasn't the system of the Corps of Cadets that was a problem. I had kind of a problem with things because if you're seeing, guys who are bullies or guys who don't have the best interest of their fellow cadets at heart and they're abusing them or, harassing them, yeah, they could have the rank, they could have the authority in the position, but if you don't trust them as people, it gets really hard to just kind of go along with things. So quickly it taught me it's like either I need to start pursuing something different or I need to just get with the program. And after about a semester and a half, especially when I became an officer a little bit over a year and a half later, I quickly had to discover it's like I've got to kind of tone things down and just kind of wait this out because there's greener pastures upon the across the horizon. But more importantly, what it taught me was that if I'm not going to be given an opportunity, I got to make an opportunity. So I didn't get rank in the Corps Cadets for one reason or another. I bet if there are some people from the class of 2015 watching this, they're probably like, well, Martinez didn't do this, Martinez didn't do that. It's like I knew what I wanted to do, and one of the things I liked was I was a big literature fan, so I was into that and philosophy. So I started MMI's first, philosophy club. And, we had about 10 or so members and, that was a lot of fun. I was president of that. We also in the past, like they used to have like student Democrats and student Republicans. I was a libertarian. Still I'm a libertarian. So I was like, I want to go ahead and have a, MMI libertarian club. So I went ahead and did that. And we used to talk about politics and everyone used to come and we would debate and talk about stuff in the news and have a good time. And, it was one of those things where it was just like, if I see something that I want to do, even in this environment where it's like you could join the drill team or you could join the Swamp Fox, which is like their pseudo special forces thing. I did Ranger Challenge for a couple semesters. You could join the history club. I was also in the history club, but I was like, if there's something I specifically want to do, nobody's going to give me permission to do it. So I had to go through the petitioning. I had to make up all the flyers and stuff like that. I had to invite meeting guests and stuff like that. So quickly it taught me, it's like, if you're not going to be given an opportunity, no one's going to give it to you. And one of the things I also did towards my last semester as a cadet was I wanted my political club to do something charitable. So the one thing I did was I arranged a charity ruck march for a local dog shelter. And we raised a lot of money to spay and neuter a lot of animals and to, get them food and medical, supplies and stuff like that. So, it was just one of those things where it was like there were other opportunities, but they weren't the things that I necessarily was passionate about. So, what it showed me was that if you want to do something and it's not available, you have to go ahead and take charge on that because it's not going to happen otherwise. And I was incredibly happy that I had the support of some really great members of the staff and faculty at MMI who were really helpful in that. They gave their time, their money. They would drive us places if we needed to pick something up. So that was one of those moments where I was like, look at what I'm doing. I'm finally out of the house. I'm encountering all these challenges. I'm doing stuff that's outside the norm, even for the Corps of Cadets. What else can this, kind of, do for me in life? And that was always one of those things I carried with me. It's like, if no one's doing it and I see that there's a need for it, or if I'm passionate about something, If you're not doing it, nobody else is going to do it for you. So don't wait for permission. Just go ahead and do it yourself.
Right. Yeah, because the longer that you wait, the less you could have been making more of an impact by now if you would have just went ahead and gone ahead and do it in the first place instead of waiting around and
well, how many people? I mean, how many people do you know? They've got these big dreams and they've got these big ambitions. They're like, I want to do X one day. I want to do Y one day, and one day never comes. And then the excuses start coming. Well, I didn't have time for it. I didn't have the money for it. I didn't know how to get started or something. And quickly, the ambition they have becomes a dream. And I tell people, don't follow your dreams. Your dreams are delusional. Follow your goals. Because if you want to do something, you're going to find a way to do it.
That's right. I agree. But a lot of times people just have that scared mentality to jump out on faith and do some of their dreams, which it's the reason it's called a dream. It's something that it hasn't happened yet, but you can see it happening. So now you got to just take the proper steps to make sure you see it all the way through.
Yeah, a dream's when you're sleeping. A goal is when you do it when you're awake. And that's ultimately what separates people that do things and people that talk about doing things. When I was in Virginia, I was a nerdy kid. Didn't have a girlfriend, overweight, nerd, and it was one of those situations where I saw a lot of opportunity around me. Where I lived outside of DC, it was one of the richest neighborhoods in America. Lots of politicians' kids, lawyers' kids, defense contractors' kids, and I grew up in an active military family. Like my dad did the best he could to provide for my brother and my mom and I, but we were different. Like, everyone's parents owned their houses. We were renters. Everyone's parents got them a really nice car when they turned 16. And I didn't get a car till I was like 18. It was a used Toyota Camry, which was a great car, by the way. And, I didn't go without anything. Like, I had a great childhood. Like, I had a very blessed childhood, but you start to quickly see that you have to work a little harder for things because your dad doesn't know the owner of this company, or you can't get this internship because you're not related to this person. Right. And quickly you realize that, some people have to take one step to go far and you have to take 1,000 steps. Now, I say that and folks would be like, oh, well, you're trying to be a victim. I'm not trying to be a victim in any way. That's just how life is. Like we're not born in equal opportunity, but we are brought up in a world that doesn't necessarily put barriers in front of us unless we choose to, allow them to restrict what we want to do. So I basically saw it as this is where I'm at. Everyone starts the race at a different point, but is it really you against them? Or is it you against you? Because a lot of people I went to school with who, grew up in that community, grew up, with families that did very well, were bankers and stuff like that. They just didn't have ambition. So because they put no initiative into anything, no wonder they're 30 years old now and still living at home, working in parks department for minimum wage. Like it's just one of the situations where it's like you had everything kind of offered to you. You could have done anything you wanted, but you didn't have the drive to do that. So then what separates me from them is the fact that I just wanted more. So I went ahead and pursued it. And, the victim mindset is constantly saying, well, she has this or he got this. So therefore, the system is against me. I can't get it. But quickly you start to realize, especially as you get older, like the world is a big place. There's a lot of space in the world for us to grow. And the ultimate measure of your competition isn't always going to be how you just compare yourself to others. You got to be able to say that, when you look back a year or 2 years from now, you're in a better position than you were then, because ultimately, if you're not trying to, grow in that sense, you're stuck somewhere. And, that's where you got to really ask this question. Am I going to be the one to move myself, or am I going to wait for somebody to carry me? Because those people don't always come. I've been very lucky in my life where I've gotten a hand in many difficult situations, but as they were reaching out, I had to reach back. And that's the ultimate choice right there.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. That's a lot of people don't understand, some of the things that you're saying, even people that's older or that's older than us, a lot of people really don't even understand that. But I hope that after them, watching this episode and you breaking it down the way you did, that they'll kind of understand it and everybody can use some of the things that we talk about to have a better mentality about life.
Yeah. I mean, things haven't always been easy. I mean, I've had some great jobs at places, and there was a time in my life where I was just applying for job after job. I wanted to be a journalist for a little bit before I went into marketing, and I was competing against like people that went to journalism school and stuff like that. And then what was funny was the person who ends up getting a certain job had less experience than I did, didn't even have a journalism degree, but they knew somebody there.
Yeah.
I worked at a tech startup for 4 months during 2020, and 2020 was really the year that made me kick my own ass, because not only was everything just like crumbling around us, everyone's got a lockdown story, but I was constantly just trying to stay abreast of stuff. I was living at home. I was working at the Washington Times. I was running all the platforms there. And one thing they did to avoid cutting employees at the time, when you don't want to lose your job, was they cut newsroom salaries 10%.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was making very little money. I was probably making 48K when I was there. So take 10% out, I'm making 44 before taxes. So I'm like, I had a girlfriend who's now my wife, and I'm like, shoot, like I'm not going to be able to get a house anytime soon. It's just, I felt like, as soon as I got 2 steps ahead, I took 5 steps back. So what that forced me to do was I had to ask, it's like, how am I going to make up that money? Or am I just going to do double the work for 10% less? So I started, writing sales copy and advertisements on Fiverr.com, not the glorious place you want to end up when you're a professional marketer. But it was great because what it forced me to do was it challenged me. And
Yeah.
a lot of clients. I took clients that were making educational toys for children. And my funniest one was this Vietnamese lady who owned a nail salon in Toledo, Ohio. And quickly I found that I was making that 10% back, but I was working like, 60 hours a week. So
Right.
it was basically like, why am I working so hard just to make as much as I was
Right.
previously? So I was getting frustrated and I was getting upset. Luckily I had made some, allies in the alternative technology field. And there was a company called Parler. Parler was very controversial when it came out. It was supposed to be the free speech Twitter and stuff like that. I was there for 4 months and I finally got a lot more money, and I was working for, big celebrities and stuff like that, such as Dan Bongino from Fox News directly. He had an ownership stake in the company. And here I am looking at this. I'm like, okay, like this is kind of political. So like, I'm still kind of in that. I had a marketing job and I'm a director. So I'm a 25-year-old junior executive. And I'm like, damn, I am doing really good. That lasted 4 months because that company was not taking itself seriously, and it was not doing the things that you needed to not only run effectively, but it got entangled with all this like legal stuff and all this political stuff. So I got laid off on my birthday.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
they'll say they fired me, but they paid me a lot of money to leave because I was pointing out a lot of problems. I'm like, some of this stuff isn't so above board, and they were like, "Shut up, take this money and go away." They did that on my birthday, so here I am during a season. The fall isn't a great season for hiring, so take that in mind. Add the pandemic, add
Mhm.
all the craziness of 2020. And then a month later, the company gets shut down by Amazon. It gets shut down by all its vendors. It was one of the situations where I wasn't even working there. And quickly, people are calling me. They're like, "Do you know how we can get our account back? Do you know how we can get our money back? Could you do all these things?" I'm like, "I haven't been working there for a month." So people don't really get the clue, get the memo. So quickly, all the turmoil. I mean, it was like political Enron, my man. It was
Mm.
toxic and radioactive. I was basically, there was a big establishment media outlet that offered me, I think it was $30,000 to go ahead and be an inside source within this place. And I was like, you can't pay me and be a snitch. So after Parler kind of fell apart in January of 2021, I had reporters stalking me. I had people threatening me. So here's where I really went on the run. I start traveling the country, staying away from people. So I'm also traveling when they're telling you not to travel. So I'm hiding out in Indiana for a little bit. I'm hiding out in Maryland, and then I go and for a few weeks, I was working at a warehouse in Dulles, Virginia. So you go from like having to make money back because they cut your salary in the newsroom to making more and being a director for a big tech startup that's really popular. It was top 10 free apps on the App Store. And then you just fumble again and you're working for like $15 at a warehouse. I ditched that for a little bit and I went to go stay for a little bit with an old Army buddy of mine who lived in a cabin down by the Fox River in North Carolina. And I was just kind of like, man, like, what am I doing with my life? I am on the run from all these people who will not leave me alone. And I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I was, dude, like, there is depressed. And then there is just a level of like, I don't understand why I'm here. Like, well, how can I go so far in such a short amount of time? And now it's like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, am I just a drain? Yeah. So quickly, I was like, there's an old saying from when, the expansion period in American history. It's the saying is like, go west, young man. And quickly, I'm like, I got to leave the East Coast. Like, I got to get a fresh start somewhere. So luckily, I had some friends that really vouched for me and helped me with a hookup for a nonprofit in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dude, I couldn't even point to Wisconsin on a map.
Yeah, you went far. You went as far west as you can go.
Man, I'm Puerto Rican. We don't handle the cold, and I went to where the cold goes to vacation from the other cold. Like it was so. I moved in to my apartment sight unseen. It was my fiance, my girlfriend who became my fiance, who's now my wife. Then my fiance and my mom found me an apartment outside Milwaukee. Didn't even see it. Put down payment because I had 2 weeks to move there. So I moved there May 31st, 2021. And dude, we got a winter vortex. So I had driven 2 days in the end of the spring to a place I'd never been, to an apartment I had never seen, in a neighborhood I couldn't even point to on a map. And as I'm wearing a t-shirt and basketball shorts, we get my first winter vortex from Lake Michigan. It is snowing in May. And my parents look at me and they're like, why did you choose to live here? And I'm like, because it's not like my options were great. And, within about a year, I became I basically worked like a madman. I was working for celebrities like Ben Stein from Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Mask. I was running his email marketing and stuff like that. I was also on the show for a while. I was producing podcasts. I was writing newsletters. I was side hustling like crazy because my fiance was taking care of her mother who was sick back in Maryland at the time. She was going to move in with me after the wedding and stuff. So I was like, I've got all this time in the world. So I was just making as much money as I humanly could. Within about a year, I became a part investor, part owner in a local craft brewery. Joined some local groups and stuff like that, started actually trying to, build up my entrepreneurial edge. And then I went back into publishing and stuff so I could work remotely because I needed to travel back between Wisconsin and Maryland to take care of family stuff. And, just within the past years, the industry was changing. I was like, you know what? It's time to take another leap of faith. And I had a dream of starting an agency years ago, but I didn't do it because I wasn't serious about it. I didn't want to take that risk. So finally I was like, I'm in a space, I'm in an industry, which is very volatile because of changes of Google and changes of Facebook and everything. And we're going to another election cycle. And I was working on news websites and stuff like that. So I was like, shoot, the marketer always gets cut first. So at that point I was like, I need to bet on myself that this company's not going to keep me if they keep losing money for things that are outside of my control. So by the time they were like, Remso, time to go, I was like, I can stomach this. And, I look at my life, man. A lot of people, like even young me, was like, you got like an XY trajectory. You're just going up in a straight line. It has been just like potholes upon potholes upon potholes. I have been like super, super wealthy. I have been really freaking poor. When I wrote my first book in 2018, when I was still trying to figure out whether I wanted to do stuff in media or if I wanted to try and go do the, Capitol Hill staffer thing, I was a mall cop. And I remember on St. Patrick's Day, 2018, I was in my car parked in front of the stage, and they told me I could do that because it was going to get to about 30 degrees or something. And I had to make sure no one was going to steal the equipment. So I had my laptop with me, and I couldn't even afford Microsoft Office, man. I was using the Google Docs, a hotspot on my phone, and the Notes app on my Mac. And I was writing my first book. And I just remember like I paused for a moment. I look around. I'm like, I'm in my car in front of a stage at a giant, like, rich people mall. I'm a mall cop writing a book. Like if this can't help me, nothing else is, because this is not working out. And, I was still a guard officer at the time. I was still an Army National Guard officer. You don't make a lot of money doing that, twice a month, 2 weeks in the year. I used to pray for when there was state active duty, maybe, for a hurricane or a flood or something or earthquake. I could go ahead and, maybe get some extra money out of that. But, I think, especially for a lot of young men, they think that, when they fail at something or when something bad happens and it's not even their fault, it's like, well, this can't get any better. It's like that situation might not get any better, but you have to divorce yourself from that. My problem growing up, and it's still something that I've had to really deal with over many years, is I always saw myself as part of my identity being who I worked for. When I was at the Washington Times, I felt like I was the king of media. Everyone wanted their stuff retweeted. Everyone wanted connection to the editor. No one cared about Remso Martinez. They cared about Remso Martinez with the Washington Times. Right. And then it was, I want our blue check mark was like a gold badge or something. They're like, we want the gold badge. They didn't care about Remso Martinez. They cared about Remso Martinez with Parler. And that was the same case everywhere I ever went. The problem when you start your own business is that you are only working with your reputation and you are building something completely different. And people are going to look at you a little bit different, especially if they have no clue who you are. They're going to be like, I don't know who you are. I've never heard of where you work. And you have to have, like, I was even having this conversation with my wife because I was getting frustrated going and meeting people. I was just like, I'm almost embarrassed because it's like this random kid, I'm 29, starting this business that no one's heard of. Like, what's he doing here? And I had to quickly realize it's like you have to have that confidence as if it's already built in, because no one else is going to believe in you, man. No one else is. If you don't have like crazy, like you ever see like a homeless person who's like singing in the park, like trying to grab pigeons and stuff? They just don't care. They're just like crazy and homeless, but they're doing like their thing. Like you have to have like crazy homeless man levels of confidence to just like act like you've already won. Because if you don't have that, people can smell that. They can see that. And they'll see that as weakness. But, it's just something I wish I had learned way, way sooner, because it would have prevented a lot of heartache. It would have prevented, just a lot of pain that came out of things. And, I'm not perfect. It's not something that's permanent with me. I still have these conversations in my head all the time. I pray sometimes. I'm like, God, I have no clue what you're doing. Like, I wish you could just tell me what you want me to do. Just tell me what you want me to do. And if it's not this, like, I'm cool with that. Just like, point me in the direction. But it's frustrating because the silence is there. And it's not that he's being silent. It's that you already know what the decision is. You just don't like where it's going to take you. But that's where faith in yourself, that's, I tell people, it's like, you don't have to share my religion, but you got to believe in something other than you. Because if you're just thinking that you're just on here alone, like, you're fucked. Like, you are fucked. Like, it's not going to get any easier. So you might as well get in tune with that now. Get straight with yourself and get straight with the universe, because life is not a line. It is potholes, and a homeless guy jumps in front of your car, and your car breaks down, and then your car sets on fire, And then you've got to trade in your car and your wife's car because the Wisconsin winters are horrible. You know, you just got to figure things out. So, yeah, I forgot what the question was, but I hope someone.
I don't know either. I think we answered it. Though. We're gonna just go with that. So as far as you being at the Washington Post, you were the social media coordinator, correct?
Yeah, I was at the Washington Times. So the Washington Post, they've been around a little bit longer. They were formed right after the Civil War, and eventually, we called them the Bezos Post when when Jeff Bezos from Amazon bought them, I think like around 2013, 2014. So the Washington Times has always been nicknamed the Post little brother because the Times came out late 70s, early 80s, and it was started by this like little weird Korean church called the Moonies. Have you ever heard of the Moonies?
No, I never heard that.
Man, this is where my first day of work. And I lived in DC. I lived in Virginia and worked in DC for like I think probably like 4 or 5 years at that point. I never really read the Times. I don't really know anyone that read the Times. But in 2016, the Times started getting popular because they were like the anti-Washington Post. So it's 2019, and I have a friend and mentor who knows that I'm unemployed. He's like, we got to get Remso out of being a mall cop. He needs a real job. So he gets me in touch with a guy named Joe who had just left the Post to go work at the Times. And on my first day at the Times, our editor-in-chief died. And then when I start telling people where I'm working, they start asking me, isn't that paper owned by the Moonies? And the Moonies is a Korean cult that does like mass marriages. Like you marry a stranger in like a football field of other strangers. And they believe in other stuff. But, the check's always cleared. So, yeah, it was the Washington Times.
Hey, that's all that matters. The check clear. That don't mean you believe in anything. They believe
like, do your thing, man. Do your
thing. Hey, it was rough out here, man. It was about to be COVID. You just didn't even Yeah. Okay. So, how do you feel like that being a social media coordinator there like helped shape you for starting your own business for Marketer on the Run?
I was on a very small digital team. We had a social media editor, and what the editor does is the editor is basically the one paying for all the ads. So boosting all the Facebook ads, all the Twitter ads, and stuff like that. So the editor was overseeing social, but making sure that the money was being applied in the right place. And then they had some other dude that was hired with me. He was basically just paid there to like breathe air and look pretty. And I was basically in charge of keeping the accounts running, but we also had our opinion section. So we had a bunch of separate accounts for Watch Times Opinion and Watch Times Op-Ed and stuff like that. And I was also given Instagram, and they were like, Instagram's a dead platform. We're not going to spend any time on it. And I'm like, I think Instagram's pretty important. Grew that from 2,000 followers to 26,000 followers with no money in less than a year. I never got a thank you for that, but I did. What it did was it really taught me a lot of things I didn't know. The one thing that I will always credit the Times for is that they gave me a lot of opportunity to mess with things. And they gave me a lot of leeway. And even when I could be a bit of a smartass sometimes, and I was pushing for more, it wasn't until after I left that I realized that they really never said no to me. So what that did was that gave me a lot of opportunity to test a lot of ideas and to learn stuff with a giant platform. Now, I made mistakes for sure. I made mistakes, but it's always easier to make a mistake in an environment where, not everything's going to go to shit if you mess up versus if you go straight into business and then you mess up, but no one's there to tell you what you did wrong and no one's there to kind of bail you out when otherwise you would be kind of shit out of luck. I know a lot of people, and I didn't necessarily know I wanted to be a marketer at the time. Like even when I was a social media coordinator, I had told people, it's like, I'm only doing this until a job as a reporter opens up and I wanted to be a reporter or a journalist or something, an opinion journalist. They let me write some op-eds too, which I'm pretty sure I'm the only marketer / social media person in media in America who was also an opinion writer for the same paper. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one. But, you know, I know a lot of folks that had gone the traditional communications or marketing route out of college. They start an agency or a small business where they're just doing like, you know, social media management. And they think that because they have the education, because they did an internship, that they're ready to be a business owner. But the thing is that being a business owner is very separate from also being good at what you're doing. And the truth is that if you're just coming out of college with a marketing degree, you're also not very good at marketing because you've never really done real marketing. You've never been stress tested. So for one, you got to learn how to run a business. Secondly, you also got to make sure you're really good so you can actually deliver things and you can compete. So I was lucky that I had time to figure out what I really wanted to do. And it was about 4 months in where I was making a lot of progress. And I was like, dang, I could actually be a full-on marketer. So, you know, at that point, what that showed me was that the building blocks were there where my confidence was growing to a point where it's like, I have a passion for this. I know what's right. And it was around the time that COVID hit when the Times started cutting salaries that I quickly had to take all the skills I applied. And then I was just a freelancer. Like I said, I was on Fiverr.com writing 500 words for $5 for nail salons in Ohio. And, you know, quickly I had that entrepreneurial side. So while a lot of people in the newsroom were struggling because they only had one source of income, and, you know, everyone was, you know, everyone else, they used to say, it's like, you know, all the rich people in my neighborhood who were saying we need to lock down the economy, or having all the poor people go run around and get their groceries. You know, there was a lot of competition. So what I was able to figure out was like, I have a skill that's very unique. I'm really good at it. I should go ahead and use this to try and make more money. And it was through that trial and error, you know, being a freelancer while still having a full-time job, where, you know, for years, I never stopped side hustling. I'm a big advocate for having multiple streams of active and passive income. You can't rely on just one. I tell people, it's like, you are the business. You're not an employee. You're in the business of Alex. And if Alex has one customer who's paying all his bills, and that one customer just decides to say, I'm done with you, you're shit out of luck. But if you have multiple streams of active and passive income, you could lose one and you're like, I'm still good. Like, I'm going to be fine. I can replace you, or maybe I don't want to. But, you know, quickly the Times was an environment where I could learn a lot. I had a lot of opportunities to discover new things. And it was because of the pandemic and everything that it forced me to ask myself, it's like, do I want to just accept that they're going to take away 10% of my pay? Or do I want to try and get that back somehow using what I've learned and what I've developed and what I've become really good at? So that's where a lot more of my entrepreneurial tendencies really started. It was during that year.
Okay. So as being a marketer, do you help any business as far as the marketing?
So I've worked with everybody. I say that I specialize in small businesses, nonprofits, and tech startups. All three of those really have the same challenges, which is where I think I can really excel. You don't have a lot of people. So usually you can't hire a full marketer. You're having like your secretary or an intern run the Facebook page. So you don't have the people, you don't have the money, and you don't know where to start. So, or what I do is I will come in and I do coaching where I will actually like teach your staff and teach your team how to run a basic marketing plan, and you know, automate the rest of it so you could focus on what you're good at doing, which usually isn't marketing. And then I offer other services where you know, organizations will basically hire me to act as their marketing manager, but they don't have to worry about me as much because I'm not an employee. So they don't have to, you know, worry about a lot of money to retain me because I can take on other clients as well. And then the third thing is that, you know, I can come in, and for a lot of businesses where it's like, you know, we have a social media coordinator, but just because somebody's a marketer doesn't mean they're good at everything. So you had enough money to hire one person who's just really good at social media, but they don't know how to do email marketing. So do you want another full-time person that just does that one thing? Or would you rather pay me for a few hours a month and I could do it for you? And, you know, it's a fraction of the cost. So it's helping guide people by teaching them. It's being a good resource for them if they don't want to bring on somebody that could, you know, become a financial strain on the business. They want an expert who they can pay a very fair amount of money to run things so they don't have to worry about it. And then the other thing is that I can really help jump in when needed. If somebody's on maternity leave, if somebody gets sick, or you have a big campaign and your team is so busy working on the day-to-day stuff, they can't work on this special campaign. So you need somebody who can just run the campaign for you. That's what, Marketer on the Run serves as.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I know with me, I actually have several different businesses that I actually run, while still maintaining a full-time job. Like I went to work today and then, got off and record. This is my fourth podcast of the day. I got one more after you. But so,
Man, you're hustling.
yeah. So with the marketing, that's one thing that I find very important, and that I know almost every business owner slacks at. I know I slack at, the marketing and things like that, just because I'm doing so much, running, trying to run several businesses while still working a full-time job. Still got 3 daughters I have to take care of at the same time as well. Plus an old lady. So of course, you know how that is.
Preach.
Yeah, but people, I don't think a lot of people really understands the importance of marketing. So can you kind of, tell them a few details of how important marketing is and why every business should focus on it?
People don't buy something that they've never heard of. People don't go for what's just available. They go for what they know is quality. And everyone wants to be attached to something that they know they can trust because they've been thoroughly educated so they can make a decision. With a lot of small businesses, they think that marketing is a luxury. That's when you're buying your billboards. That's when you're spending money on jingles. But the truth is that before somebody makes a sale, they have to make a decision as to whether or not they trust that they're going to give their money to you and they're going to get something good in return. Marketing tells the story of the value of your product. And marketing instills that you're not just getting a one-time purchase, but you're developing a relationship with an ongoing customer base. So marketing is not a loss lead. Marketing is not just a money suck or a waste of time. It makes you look good a little bit now, but it doesn't reward you later. Marketing is an ongoing, never-ending process in which you're keeping your current base with you and, developing that trust and loyalty. They have to know, like, and trust you. Those are the 3 biggest things. But you're also reaching out to new people who want your product or your service. They want to give you their money, but they don't even know you exist. So it's an investment. And, for folks that don't market, what they also don't do? They don't succeed. Because I've met many smart people with many great resources. I knew a guy that ran a tequila company, and I'm not much of a tequila drinker, but his tequila was pretty freaking good. And it had a cool website and it had a cool story about him and his wife went to Mexico and they met a guy who made tequila and they wanted to bring it back. So they started doing tequila. It was a cool story. They never spent any money on ads. They built it and they told their friends about it. And they just kind of anticipated like everyone to come to them. But ultimately, it's like if you don't go out and brag about yourself, like no one else is going to do it. It's like I was saying earlier. It's like you gotta be your biggest fan. You gotta be your biggest cheerleader. If you're not marketing, people aren't buying, and that's something that a lot of folks have to figure out fast. Because usually, by the time you're like, "Oh no, we need to finally start marketing," it's because you're not making any sales and you're not paying the bills. So it's not something you can ignore. It's something that you have to get accustomed to and you have to get with, because by the time you're stressing about having to do the marketing, you're already identifying that there were a lot of lost opportunities.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Well, Remso, it's been a great conversation with you today. I feel like we got a lot accomplished. I feel like this episode really could have lasted for like 3 or 4 hours. You know what I mean?
Oh man, I had a Red Bull and everything else. So while you're already thinking, it's like I gotta get ready for the next smo. It's like I could have gone like another hour. But I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, it's no problem. I
respect the hustle too. For you to do this, for you to still work a full-time job and run your businesses, man, you're setting yourself up. You're going to be the person that brings about the biggest change in your family. And it all starts with you.
Yeah, hey, that's my goal. if we want to have generational wealth, it has to start with somebody. So, you gotta start off laying that foundation, because nothing is created without a foundation. Like a house, it has to have a foundation. Everything has to have a foundation before you can truly shape it into what you want it to be. You know what I mean? So, I'm just trying to set that foundation and then teach my kids and their kids what they need to know, and then hopefully they can form that the rest of the way, and it keeps going, on to the next life and next life and next life. So
I appreciate you, man. And War Eagle.
I thought we was gonna get out of here without you saying it. Oh man. But nah, hey, I definitely appreciate you taking the time. I know you're pretty busy. We're gonna be in touch pretty soon. I may talk with you on some marketing things anyway. But I definitely appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing you again.
Appreciate you, sir. Take care.
No problem. Everybody, you just watched another episode of All in All with Alex. Peace.